David Wenham, welcome. We are here because I came to see this show, an Iliad. I was so blown away by the performance, I asked Sydney Theatre Company if we could have this conversation. So help me out and tell the audience who the poet is.
Okay, the poet is someone who, it's an inspired idea really by the writers. They've invented a character called the poet. May or may not be Homer, but he is someone who was present during the Trojan War. And then he's been present at every war through history. And what he does, he travels through time and he comes across an audience. And the night you came, he came into this space and he told the story of the Trojan War in an attempt that people one day might actually listen to what that piece is actually about and possibly learn from it. That's the conceit of the play. It's a clever conceit.
Now, you say that you like to surprise and subvert expectations about what role you're going to pick next, about your choices. So why did you choose this piece?
I went in search for quite some time as to Mitchell Butel, who is the current artistic director of Sydney Theatre Company, asked if I'd come back and do something here. I haven't performed for this theatre company for 27 years. And I thought, yes, I'll do something. And it was probably in about, the third month of looking for material, I read about this piece. I'd never read the Iliad, but I'd read about this piece called An Iliad. And then I went on a little search to find it. It's a relatively obscure piece. As soon as I read it, I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. Because I wanted to do something that wasn't just ephemeral and a good night out and, a wonderful piece of entertainment. I wanted to do something that actually did stay with people and had some substance, and this certainly did. So I sent it off to Mitchell, and Mitchell said, perfect. At the time, Ukraine was the number one story on the news every night, and this piece seemed to sing to that particular time in history. And it's certainly singing to a different conflict at the moment.
You say you're looking for something substantial. What is it in the play that you are trying to convey? What is that thing of substance and meaning that you want us to take away?
Well, the wonderful thing about it is that it's not didactic in any way, shape or form. And that comes from the poem itself, the Iliad, which is obviously an extraordinary piece of literature. And it obviously paints very clearly the futility of war. But it covers a much broader thematic world as well, whereby it actually looks into the effects of war on everyday society. Like at the moment we have one man who there's ego and pride, and his decisions affect people and nations around the world. The Iliad, a 3,000-year-old story, deals with this, and you actually see it back then. It's also a fascinating piece in the fact that the characters in the Iliad a lot of them were aware of their own mortality, and they were fated. They knew that they were going to die. Most of us go through our lives not really thinking about the fact that we are mortal. And when you realise that you are mortal, then you think about how you live your life. And I think that's a fantastic thing within the Iliad. How do you actually live your life? How do you live a good life?
You've said about yourself as an actor when you were younger, in playing rough, tough, mean characters, that you found it difficult to lose the character at the end of the day, that your practice, if you like, was, I imagine, less evolved at that time. So now, are you able to slough off the poet, or do you go home and talk about the fates?
Yeah, I'm a completely different actor now. I wouldn't have been able to do this when I was younger. It would have been a completely different thing. You're right. Back then in the early days, it was nearly like psychodrama. I used to psych myself into the character's mind, so I actually believed I was physically that person. Pretty dangerous thing to do. Now I am completely different, and this is the first time ever in my working life as an actor on stage whereby I didn't put any pressure on myself at all during rehearsal, which was interesting because this is probably the biggest thing I've ever done. And I also decided before rehearsal, we only had 4 weeks to get the show up from scratch, and I decided not to learn the lines before the show, which is massive because it's like it's basically like 50 pages of a novel trying to learn that. I decided not to, so I wouldn't get caught in rhythms or have any preconceived ideas. So I went into the rehearsal room and I could just play and just invent things. And then, because I worked from 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock each day, I was the only cast member. It was only night time when then I could learn the material, but I put no pressure on myself. And it just seemed to just flow much more easily. And in terms of, you ask, is any of the character left on me at the end of the day? No. And what happens now is there's a roller door there, and that's where I enter from each performance. And I stand there before the show. I am completely relaxed. I don't think of what I'm about to do. And it's the same routine every night. The assistant stage manager will say, we have the all clear, front of house all clear, stand by, go. And I wait for 1 second, always 1 second, because if I wait any longer, I'll start to think. 1 second. I'll inhale, and then I'll start to pull the chain to bring up the roller door to begin the play. And just that motion of bringing that up immediately takes me into the last performance, and I drop in and I'm suddenly the poet again that goes on this same journey of telling this same story over and over, night after night after night.
We haven't seen you on stage in Sydney for a long time. Obviously, lots of people have been watching you in film and television. How much do you adjust the craft returning to theatre? You've obviously done some theatre in recent years, but you were trained as a theatre actor, not trained as a television and film actor. How does the craft adjust when you come back to the theatre?
It's a really interesting thing because it's completely disproportionate to the amount of people who see a piece of film or television compared to a play. Like prior to doing this production, last year I shot 2 things for big streamers, one for Netflix, one for Amazon, and I'm a character in both of those things, and literally millions of people have watched those things, not because of me, it's just because of Amazon and Netflix. Millions of people do it. Each day when I'm working on those things, I'm not aware of the audience, and there's very little rehearsal time at all on those things. It's literally, you do it, you may have a few takes, that's it. Whereas something like this, my mind had been percolating on this for months and months before I went into the rehearsal room. And yet the amount of people who see this is what, 400 and something people a night. But yet the level of thought and intent and input that I put into this is completely disproportionate to film and television.
One of the things the director said about you is something that is part of why you are so loved and admired in Australia, and he talks about the way you're able to capture the everyman. Do you know what that is in you?
Look, I think it probably comes from my upbringing, and my parents. I think without a doubt. I grew up in a very working class family. I was the last of 7 kids. We had, there was no great money. But my parents were pretty extraordinary people. And my father was an amazing man who served the community and used to, he did incredible things through his life. They were there for other people, not themselves. And I think that was probably the greatest gift they gave me in terms of, think of other people.
From Homer to Marrickville.
To Miller's Point.
To us. David Wenham, thank you.
Pleasure.